Fecundity. That's your vocab word for the day. Fecundity. Don't ask me to define it. You all have Google just like me. Just that moment. And then there was a bang. And then an expanse that has been going on for 13.8 billion years. From the single moment, 13.8 billion years ago, a bang, and everything starts unraveling from there. In the first 3 minutes, 13.8 billion years, 3 minutes into the bang, subatomic particles bonded to create atoms. In the first 3 minutes, particles turned to other particles and said, "Hey, want to hang out?" 300,000 years, like the fact that scientists can say that in 3 minutes. Anyway, 300,000 years of expanding outwards. The whole of existence, all of the universe cooled down. Everything in this, from here to that point, cooled down to the temperature of the sun. And that is when atoms started bonding with other atoms to create molecules. Essentially, atoms turning to other atoms and going, "Hey, want to hang out?" 400 million years. 400 million years into the expanding from that singular moment, the first stars started to form, creating things like nitrogen, oxygen. Very useful. Into a billion years, remember our conversion, million to billion. Billion years, the first planets became formed and into existence. Still hotter than anything you could live on, but a planet nonetheless. 9 billion years, so you go from this moment, 100,000, couple 100,000 years, billion, 9 billion years, our solar system, the one we live in, started to form. Speaking of our solar system, scientists have identified an object moving at 67,000 kilometers an hour, and not just moving at 67,000 kilometers an hour through our solar system, but also rotating at 1,000 miles an hour. This object is called Earth, in the place we call home. And since the planet is moving at that speed, this is why you should wear a seatbelt. Our Earth is not just moving around the star at 67,000 kilometers a mile and spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. We are also tilted at 23.5 degrees. All other planets in our solar system, Earth, This tilt is so important for life on Earth to exist. If we were tidally locked, if only one side of our planet faced the sun, the one side would get too hot and the other side would get too cold. Which goes to the question, why do we tilt? 60% of that gravitational pull is from our sun. The other 40% is from the little object in the sky we call our moon. Without our moon, life on Earth would not be possible. Which comes to the question of, how did we get our moon? They think at about 9 billion years after the Big Bang, it was an asteroid that got caught in Earth's gravitational field. Essentially, moon said to the Earth, "Hey, want to hang out?" You don't know I got a dark side. It's a blind date that turned out real well for us. 10 billion years into creation, in our solar system, on our planet, molecules started bonding together in kind of a pool of stuff that started to create cells. And those cells slowly developed over the next 3 billion years into the first elements of life. That's how life starts here. of the 13.8 billion years of history. It's the way of the science. This isn't in the Bible. The Bible tells a different story, my friend. Wonderful. This is where the Bible goes, my friends. The Bible tells the poem of this, long story short. So here we are, 3.8 billion years. At about 3.7, we show up. If you're thinking about time as a clock, there's 24 hours in a day. You know when humanity showed up? At 11 o'clock, 59 minutes, 59.9 seconds. Humanity is in the last second of creation's 24-hour day. Imagine. How great thou art. It's a thing. That's what it takes to get you here. You. That was just space-time. Talk about you. How many of you can see me? That's not as comforting as I thought. How many of you can see me? All right, we're on our way. That's good to say the least. If you can see me, chances are you've got around 9 million rods, 4 million cones, several million neural receptors, over 1 billion brain cells, none of them which are exactly the same. Your brain is making over 1 trillion computations every second. Every 1 to 2 seconds, your body is completing a 2-day cycle of creating another 2 million red blood cells. Every second, a 2-day process of creating red blood cells is being replaced. You have several billion white blood cells stored in your bone marrow. And between these red blood cells and white blood cells that make you, it begs the question, how do these cells know to make you and not make somebody else? Oh, and about your cells, every 7 to 10 years, every cell in your body changes over. You have replaced every cell in your body every 7 to 10 years. If you go 10 years without seeing somebody, you're meeting a different person. If you're a big Marvel fan like me, you've heard about the ship of Theseus. Or if you took an intro to philosophy course, the ship of Theseus. Breaking this down, this is an ancient Greek mind game or question to you. Breaking it down real simple. Your uncle gives you a boat because the uncle is clearing out their stuff. They give you a boat because you've always wanted a boat, right? You've always wanted a boat. You've wanted the boat, so you get the but when you take the boat, you realize that the hull of the boat has a hole. And you don't want to take a boat out into the water with a hole in the hull. So you replace that board and you replace a couple boards around it. Well, the next year you end up replacing even more boards. The next year you replace a few more boards. That third year that motor went out, so you got to replace that. And then the cover goes out. And at some point you have replaced every screw, nail, and board and motor and made a whole new boat, right? At what point does it stop being the boat your uncle gave you and the boat you built? That is the ship of Theseus. That old Greek mind game is exactly what's happening to you every 7 years. What makes you, you? If we go into your cells, you'll find, if we could break down your cells just smaller, there's a thing called DNA, and it is a line of code that if we were to stretch out every bit of information, it ends up being 6 feet long to make the code that makes you, you. These are the instructions from the cell when it reproduces to make more of you and not the person sitting next to you. If I were to take every cell of your body and take the DNA inside each cell and string them together end to end, it would go from here to the sun and back 400 times. If I were to break down your DNA even smaller, because we can do that, down to the subatomic particles, which they think that there's about 37 to 38. You got your bosons, your leptons, your exotic mesons. Ooh, who doesn't love an exotic meson? These are the elements that were here at the very beginning. Down in the stupendous fecunditude that are now living in you. This is why sometimes you need a nap, for you have traveled quite a ways to get here. What the book of Job asks of us is not, how dare you? It is a reminder of perspective. It is a position of the heart. When someone looks at the wonder of creation, and I can use science, I can use what we know this world to be to say that this wild creation, starting from the beginning, that brings us all the way to the now, my reaction when you stand back and consider all the things that had to happen to go right, the depths, the lengths, the heights, and the widths, I stand in awe and awareness, awe and deep gratitude and humility about where my place is in the world. The struggles I retain, the joys that I experience, all of what had to happen. And you can have the position of the heart that says, it was all chance. You can have the position of the heart that says, you know what, it was just a systematic dominoes. I think that's really closed-minded. I think the more possible is a state of wonder. I think the more realistic, I think the more imaginative and compelling is to say, whoa. Because the more we see of the created world, the more wonder we actually obtain. This is actually the teachings of Jesus. Jesus does not say, someday heaven's so much better than the created world. Jesus ended up saying, in him, in his death and resurrection, here now, look. How many times did Jesus say, look at this? Have you considered the lilies of the valley? Do you pay attention to the birds and how they fly and feed? That the created world is its own testament to the goodness of God. So the point is do you see it? Will you see it? It is hard when, for me, the line that I really wish I could have said is in this opening chapter. It always is, and God spoke from the whirlwind. And you get this picture, like, because we've all seen the Charlton Heston 10 Commandments, that it's the cloud that comes down. Remember everything I said about Job? That's your whirlwind. I don't think God brought the whirlwind to Job. I thought Job was in the middle of it. He's got the swirl of the grief of the loss of his kids and his health concerns and the loss of his life and the conversations he's having with his friends, and it's all swirling around him. And in the midst of that whirlwind, that righteous storm, God is whispering to him, it's bigger than you could ever know. Everything is bigger than you could ever know. The reaction to the largeness, to the bigness of our created world ought not be stubbornness, a rejection, or walking out. It should be awe and wonder, gratitude and thanksgiving. Because for us who not just are aware of the created world, for us, we say that the one who guided all of this came into human flesh to whisper to us even today, not just that there's more, But even at the end, because I will take this, the scientists who say this will stretch out past into our future to what's called the heat death of the universe, when the last star eventually burns out all of its energy. That's for them the end of the world. The end of all, not just the world, but all that is. Even to them, Jesus says, I'm risen from the dead. There is more to this than this. It should allow you to appreciate what is, truly appreciate what is, and go into the future with confidence and courage. May you be free of having all the answers. May you be free of having all the answers. And when you speak, when God's presence is called into your life, may it be filled with praise and wonder. Amen.